Hello and welcome back, beautiful beings, to the podcast with Jana and me, Awakened Entrepreneur Revolution. Today we'll be diving into money, a huge topic. And upfront, we're not going to get you the 5 best hacks on how to make more money online, because that is like 2017 or even earlier. I don't know. We will talk about the energy of money, the beautiful trigger of money, how you can use that. We're going to talk about attachments, perceptions, and everything that is connected. And then still coming back to, but well, we still have money in our world. There's stuff to be paid in money in the way that we see it today. So how can we use it both ways? Like, how can we tap more into receiving it, creating it, letting it be part of our world and of our existence without having attachments that bring us back to, if you listen to the episode before, where we talked a lot about bringing the unconscious behaviors and self-sabotage to surface. And money is one beautiful driver and tool that we can use also to do that. And we want to find the balance in this episode, sharing a bit on own experiences, but also what we see and feel where there's misconceptions in the industry, in the online space, and where you might have been confused. And we want to shed some light on that, essentially, and using this beautiful tool and the beautiful thing called money that we have in our beautiful human world on this planet.
I love that. And, I wanted to just start off with two things that popped up when you were creating that intro around, I think some topics around money that are very well explored. And that there's more to it. It's not just if you're not making money, it's because you have a money block or you don't feel like your self-worth, right? I mean, that's always the go-to. And I explore these with my people a lot. And 9 times out of 10, especially if they're newer to the inner work, there are things around, we all have our unworthiness to one degree or another, right? But there's the other side of that coin too. And you said the attachment piece and the control piece and the I have to go and get mine piece that blocks it even more than, potentially like I'm not deserving of money, or I'm not going to ask for money, or money's the root of all evil. I think some of those things have been sort of looked at for a lot of people and released. But it's the other side that's so emotionally charged with money that I think is the real trigger and the real block around, how do I go and create this thing that's my passion and my purpose. However, in order to bring my passion and my purpose to, its full potential, I have to become that person. That's a topic for another day. But I also need the money, right? Like that's part of it. You and I and many people listening, especially if you identify with the whole light worker piece, you probably left pretty stable careers to do what you're doing. And so the money in my experience and to this day is always sort of playing in the background, whereas maybe that drum wasn't beating when somebody else was picking up my paycheck. But now it is, because there's a direct correlation, or is there, between what I do and how much comes back in. I will say this, I'm not sure for me if the jury is still out on there being a direct relationship, a direct correlation between the more I do, the more I make. But what I am definitely, and I'd love anybody to challenge me on this, there is a belief in my mind, the less action I take, the less that will get made. And so, how do we play with that attachment? How do we let some of that motivate, but not to the point where, I always say, like, I got to do the thing to make the thing happen so I can get the thing, so I can get paid, right? Because that's not the intention. I don't think that's the intention for any of us. Well, not any of us, but for a lot of us, open-hearted, conscious entrepreneurs, A, we probably already made money, been there, done that. And B, our passion and our impact is what really drives the bus. But, when you got to pay your bills and all of these things, it's hard not to let some of that come in and try to drive the bus. And so how do we have that reality and that truth, but not let it? It's kind of like it gets a seat at the table, because we have to acknowledge that we still live in the world where taxes are a thing, and, we have to pay a mortgage and nothing's free. We have to eat, but yet not let it come. And this is that back to that block, so consuming that, I end up talking with people and chatting with people who are like, if I don't get a client like by next week, you would think somebody is going to chop off their head. Like, that's how much fear they're in. And that's why it is such a big trigger, and why we wanted to make it just about talking about this particular one.
And I just need to, because what you just said about the funny thing is, if you listen and, this fear, how you feel around this, or what it drives you to with regards to action, and most of it might be unconscious, or is usually unconscious, it does not really change if you make more money. It might show up in a different version in your reality, but the inner journey and the inner driver stays the same, no matter if you make 5K a month, or 10K, or 20K, or 30, or 50K, or whatever many amount of money you make, right? The thing is to understand and allow to look at, where is that stemming from, and where is the deeper layers again. We're talking a lot about these deeper layers. And like Jana said, everyone listening, I would bet my ass on that, has done the at least first 5 layers of, I feel at some point some part of me is not worthy of receiving, just everything that you just said. There's this, we all have this core mother wound, father wound, money wound. Then there's the part from the collective, all of these beautiful beliefs about money, that it's the devil's advocate, and all of these things. We've worked through these things. The top layers are like checked off, if you want, to a certain degree for most of us. Yet, when we then look at the businesses, and money as an entrepreneur is a central part of that, because it is the exchange that we receive for the service that we offer. So it is always a part of that. And then, this is 2 different layers of looking at it. And what is close to my heart is bringing your awareness to the fact that you need to separate the perspectives with which you look at money. There will always be the most tangible one. It's like somebody buys something from you, whether that is recorded stuff or, your one-on-one. There's an exchange, and you deliver something and they pay. That is just the tangible 3D money exchange. Even if we tap into crypto now, it doesn't matter. There is some sort of a thing called money that is a larger group of people agreed upon, that this piece of paper here is $100 worth, so you can exchange it for something, that is still there, full stop. And we leave it there. And then move away from that perspective and look at the other perspectives. And this is where the attachments come into play. What does it, or how does it influence your behavior, how you create, how you feel, and how much you are able to grow and expand in the first place personally, which then directly goes back into your business, resulting in then more of the actual money flowing. But to give you a bit more tangible example of what I just outlined overall, when you even let's assume you make 50K a month, right? Not so many people do that. There's a lot that do, but there's not so many. That's quite a higher level of what you can get to. Yet you might still experience the same fear, the same anxiety level of somebody that makes maybe 2K a month and is worried about, can I pay whatever bill is coming in 5 weeks, right? The outer reality is completely different, but the inner journey of that is exactly the same, and that is still living in the illusion that money is solving something for you, which it is not. And then allowing to go deeper in, okay, what exactly is my paradigm that I'm still outliving through that, right? What do I still believe? And in the end, it comes back to how much power do you allow money to have over you? While money in itself has no power at all, it's neutral. It's neutral. It is what you attach to that within your belief system, within all of the rest of the programming. Again, deeper layers, not the, oh, my parents were here and there, and that's why I never, all of that. We all have kind of a story around this, and we've all worked through these layers at some point, but then really go deeper and discover. And you may be surprised when you go deeper, what are things that you may discover that you believe about yourself, about money, what a certain amount of money makes you mean as an entrepreneur, as a woman, as a man, as a parent, as, whatever it is. Go into the finer nuances of that. And then also keep asking the questions when you are in self-reflection to figure out what is the actual driver. And again, it connects a bit to the other episode we recorded before, figuring out what your truth is, right? Now, I'll let Jana jump in because you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm just thinking, really just listening to what you're saying, because really and truly, even separating money from ego, because I think ego and fear really use money. Like it's part of they use that as that control piece, that program of, I have to get mine, lack consciousness, I make things happen, the doer, the control, the attachment, like all of that is ego language. Like it's small self stuff. And, and this is more of that intellectual versus embodiment, but the first step is the knowing, right? And then you can actually like embody, is just recognizing when you're in those type conversations with yourself, right? And being able to remind yourself of your real intention. So it sort of like diffuses its power. Like that's what I do a lot when I'm talking to clients about sales calls. And they're like, well, I got to make them. I'm like, yes, I know you want to sign the client, but the money and the attachment and all of that egoic energy is not what you need to bring to a sales conversation. Because guess what? Lovingly, it's not about you. It's about them and their transformation. The money is just sort of the benefit that you get once they decide this is the right decision for them. And really being able to tease that out, because what ego or fear, however you want to look at that, is that survival piece of you wants to make it the thing. Like you said, peaceful. It's not really the key to anything. It's just there. And it, of course, we need it for certain things, but ultimately, and I do believe this, and I've experienced this in my own business, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like the more we stay in our own power and we show up as that, I am pure consciousness and I'm here to serve, when we push out that energy, it does come back. But I will say one little caveat here. It's really interesting, is it's not always tit for tat. In other words, you could be like, God, I just poured my heart and soul into that workshop or that person, and they didn't do the thing right back. But you're totally ignoring that, your IRA or whatever saving, like just went up by like 40 grand. You know what I mean? But it's the same thing. But so don't always expect it to be a direct correlation either. And I think that that's a trap that a lot of us fall in. So even though you're energetically doing your output and your thing, it doesn't generally come back to you in that direct manner. Like, I send this email, I get X amount of clients. And hey, you know what? I could be totally talking out of my ass. Maybe when I am making multi-millions, I do go and I know exactly how many people are going to buy. I also think that's a little more 3D, but hey, that's the conversation for another day. But I do think, especially if you're earlier on in your business, it's not always going to be like, I do this, I get that. But I would encourage you to see where it shows up in other ways.
I totally love
somebody just give you a ridiculous discount on getting your car fixed or whatever it may be, because the more you acknowledge and are grateful for when it does show up in other ways, the more it will show up for you in the ways you were more probably expecting. But you're so attached to those that it doesn't. I'm done.
Yeah, I love that example. And it's exactly that. I've experienced that so many times in my business across the last years. Then all of a sudden a tax return comes in, boom. Or the discounts. You have no idea, since for a few years, I'm traveling several months a year. Like right now I'm in Portugal again a month. And you have no idea how often I've gotten ridiculous deals on either like an apartment or a hotel or whatever. They just were never there. And exactly in the time I was looking for, it was like discounted 40% or something, or like these type of things. And that in a way brought me money indirectly, obviously, right? But it saved me money, however you want to see that. But money came, like the abundance of that, which I was pouring out in intention and in being and in the frequency. We're going back to all of that, where you pour your soul in there and the purest intention, right? You're not watering that down. And that is the exploration journey that we want to encourage you to go to allow to see where you are watering down the purity, where you're coloring it in an unserving way again, right? You start out at that point where from pure heart and soul, you go with that intention, that whatever that is, just like Dana said, and then these beautiful patterns kick in, and they are subtle. Especially now, because we're not in 2015 or 17 anymore. A, it's faster, and B, it is finer. So you will also see the patterns in your behavior and the awareness, your whole consciousness, your whole awareness is ascended. If you did that consciously or not, just because we are where we are with the world and with the planet, right? That also means you have access to finer levels of frequency, which then result back in our 3D world in the thoughts and your behavior, right? It all turns into the form and into the matter. But that is, you get access to these fine-tuned things. And when we then want to break it back down to money, again, looking at your business, it is great to look at what are you, again, on truth or not truth. Where is that colored in a way that you're not intending, right? Where is the coloring that you have about business, about money, what a certain, for example, you may hold, a client of mine was there. We uncovered that she was holding the belief unconsciously that earning a certain amount of money in a month was either creating an open gate or a closed gate for her with regards to who she could work with. Maybe you've heard this beautiful, there's a discussion online, every time I see that popping up again, is the overall lovely discussion of if you have not made a certain amount of money X, can you work with a client who is already at a higher level of income? And can you support them in growing their business? There's a lot of conversation on, okay, this is not possible. If you not have made $1 million, how can you be coaching somebody beyond $1 million? I personally feel that is not true. I do understand the whole idea of qualifications and, looking at somebody, if they are really real, if they know what they do, and, do that, please, your due diligence on checking on it. Is that person valid? Is that person, legit overall? Do that. But just if you reduce that to the pure factor of that income level and business growth overall, that is not a no per se. It depends a bit on, what exactly you want. But this black whitish perspective on this one, for example, to me is a good example of this coloring, because it also contributes to cementing, if you want, the belief in so many of us that we think, oh, I cannot serve this audience that I no, I can help. Oh, but because there's this factor of I make maybe 6 figures and they are making multiple 6 figures, just to make it very stereotype. But you see with the work that you do, and all of us Lightworkers, we do a lot of transformational support work, and then somewhere it might lead into business, like for Jana and for me, or it might not. But it does not mean if you're not making multiple 6 figures yet, you see and with the work that you do, you can support the person. And then it's a question, can you use that, the disconnect that you may feel, and understand where are you bullshitting yourself on that, and how, or because of that, you're not reaching them and not signing them because you're not creating content in a way, or you're not showing up in the way, in that authority. And that is also, where we can use allowing to look at money in a certain way. What is out there in communication? Is that aligned with us? The narrative that is out there in the online space, in our business world, all of the things that are out there, and also remembering everyone who is creating these types of content, it's just their marketing as well, right? It probably just caters in their narrative of marketing of what they are selling, which is completely fine, just for you not to go and, oh, apparently 150 people are commenting on this, so it must be true. Well, maybe it's true for them, but is it true for you and what you are doing? And again, money is potentially something that can limit us a lot because we give it the power over us by having attachments that make it mean something, either about what we're capable of or what it makes it mean about ourselves. What is accessible to us? What do we have permission to do because of having it or not having it, right? So this is something that was really close to my heart, what I wanted to bring in here to, yes, look at what you see, let it come to you, and always test back, is it your truth? And if you feel no resonance to that, or even like disconnect and resistance, it triggers something in you, get curious, go deeper and find that thing, and then talk about it, make content about it, is what I always say. Your everyday experiences is great content for your audience, so they can elaborate on that one. So do you have a take on that, Jana?
Well, I do. And I love the idea of not necessarily any absolute truth with any of this. Because, the way I have become to see how reality works is it's each and every one of our own. Like, I'm in your reality and you're in my reality. And we're experiencing our own stuff inside out. So in that case, I believe that we're here to support each other and walk each other home. Right. And, you're my biggest teacher in this moment. I'm your biggest teacher in this moment. And, and that's how this thing is set up. Right. In that way, then absolutely, kind of like a basketball coach that can coach a basketball player. Like, we can see things that the person that's in that reality can't see. One of my coaches said this, and I thought it was so hilarious. I might steal it. Stay tuned, because she's like, one of my toxic traits is I can tell you exactly what you need to do to be more successful in your business, and it's something that I'm not doing in this moment. Something along those lines. And it's true. And I think if any coach were being 100% honest, there are things that they're coaching about that they really need to absolutely be doing more of themselves. We are excellent, just like we're great to judge others, right? We can see that's part of this experience of this hall of mirror thing. We can see the stuff in others that they're blinded by. And so I don't think, and that has nothing to do with whether or not I can see it in myself necessarily, because there's just certain things we need reflected back to us by someone else in order to see it. So in that sense, I don't think it matters how much a coach makes in order to be able to work with a coach, somebody that's, or not just a coach, but you know what I mean? Like, can somebody that makes multiple 6 figures coach somebody that's in, multiple 7 or 8? And, to me, it just really goes back to that. I mean, can they be a great reflection of that person's blind spots? And do they have the skill set to help them with whatever those blind spots are. It has nothing to do with how much you make, and everything to do with what those blind spots are. And then that's the kicker, right? Can you help with those? Because just because, it's like the whole those that can't do teach. And that's why they say that, because we aren't able to see our own stuff. And that's what I get emotional. And that's what I find to be so beautiful about pieces of the coaching industry is that we can't do this thing alone. And what beautiful way to come together and create this industry that's like, I got you over here, I'll get you over here, now you get me over there. And between all of us, we're going to make this happen for each and every one of us. Because it's like it takes a village sort of mentality. And so I think it's yes and no. I think it's that person being really honest with, do they have the skill set to help that person? And it has nothing to do with money. I mean, there's some really unconscious people making a ton of money. And I can tell you they could learn a thing or two from you and I, and probably everybody listening to this podcast, And so that's sort of how I feel about that.
Yeah, and I love that. That is maybe a great way also to end this, to see. Now I lost it, but it's going to come back. What you just said about the disconnect. Yeah, that is what I wanted to say, or not the disconnect, but the detachment, right? Allowing to stay in the awareness of the different perspectives around money. Fully detaching does not mean you're moving away from allowing to receive money, because that's the other level, if you want, the other perspective, right? That will not change. You're selling something, you're receiving the money. You're doing something, money is coming another way, whatever. That is one cycle in its own. The other one is the one where you've been given breadcrumbs to understand yourself better and regard money as a trigger. That is beautifully helpful in that part. And then again, if we look at this industry, right, how you can support and who you can support is in no way, that is also what I believe, is in no way connected to the money that you make. And there's one thing which is a little bit of a but, in order for it to happen, if you want, in order to have it in your reality, then that is a bit where it then comes back to how are you able to speak about it, which then we're in marketing and sales again on the business end, right? Because then you just need to find out the way, what is the words that the person needs to hear to understand, oh, there is somebody who can help me in this, right? So that is, we need to be visible to those that we want to serve, in the awareness and consciousness that we need to split away these detachments that control in a way, if we allow, and that limits us in delivering in the strengths and in the potential that we can, right? And especially as light workers, there's so much that we can give, and there's still so much, acceptance as a word comes up, but maybe it's not the good word or the best word, but to making it the new normal, that this type of what we do outside of the checkbox strategy stuff, right, that this is equally or the same value thing, that this is normal, and we don't need to shy away or think we need to fly a bit more under the radar until there is more tangible things. It is fucking tangible if you create shifts for somebody to make them feel better, more abundant shifts for them to understand themselves better, and because of that they can deliver better, higher, more, whatever. That is fucking tangible, right? It's not only the number on your bank account or the car or the house or whatever it is.
Well, I'll just say this around that before, and that is, it's not always the person that does the job the best that wins. It's the best marketer. So in that sense, like, don't sell yourself short because, just because you're like, I have so much to give and I have such a talent and it's just going unnoticed. Well, it's just because we live in a world where maybe there's plenty of people that can't even do it as good as you, but they know how to do the other things. and their bank account is going to reflect that. So, it really does come back down to both and knowing how to do that. And I did want to say this because I meant to say this before. Sometimes we hear these spiritual teachers like saying things like, well, I just get paid for being me. But they don't elaborate on that at all. Like, what does that mean? Because when I first heard that, I'm like, so what? Where is this check even coming from? Like, how does this happen? Like, it's just random check. Like, what is this? Like inheritance? Like, where is, and but you have to remember that you found them somehow. They're marketing courses at Mindvalley somehow. They've got videos up on YouTube somehow. They've got courses to sell somehow. So why they are being paid to be them, ultimately, I think we all are. But there is work. That doesn't mean, like, maybe nobody else took it this way, but when I first heard this, a decade ago, I was like, oh, like she just kind of sits back and gets paid for being her. No. Let's look at the actual reality. She's visible. She has contracts with big other spirits. There's things happening there. That doesn't just mean we don't do anything. But I do believe each and every one of us could learn to trust the flow and the abundance of money more and receive more and open up to noticing more about how it shows up.
I feel, while I just listened to what you said, there's two ways to look at this one sentence of, oh, I'm getting paid to be me. What I'm hearing is you just had and that is one beautiful perspective, the emphasis on the being. I get paid to be me. Oh, means I don't need to do that much, right? And
Right.
This is then, okay, but obviously you see them doing stuff, otherwise there wouldn't be a YouTube channel and all of the things.
I would never have seen her.
Right? And the second perspective is, and that is what I feel where a lot of people also struggle, and this is where the other resonance can come in, if you have the emphasis in the sentence on the being you.
Right. Who you are.
Then it's not about the whole being part in the first place, but it is about figuring out, who am I, and am I in integrity, and what is authentic to me, and getting paid for this, and not falling into a pattern or like, a box of, here's the Carter cookie thing. This is how you need to be when you want to be X. And This is the other aspect of that, right? That is a process in itself. In the end, both together create the beautiful result that we want, right?
Right. No, that's such an interesting way to see it. And, that's probably what she meant. But I think sometimes when these spiritual teachers don't elaborate a little bit, it can leave a false impression on people, that somehow they figured it out. And if they just trust enough, that paycheck is just going to magically appear in the mailbox, And so. Anyway.
All right. Let's close this off, leaving you with let the money flow, and know that this is just part of your business process. You're selling something and you get an exchange in money, in currency. That's one thing that's great. And then use the other perspectives and the other layers to let it be your teacher. Let it be the exploration path, because it's something that will be in your world every week, maybe every day. And why not use the things that are there anyway to allow you to dive a little bit deeper? I hope you enjoyed this, and let us know what you think. Let us know if you have more perspectives, more questions, what you feel is your truth about this. We love learning as well, so happy to hear your take on this.
Thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.